Okay, have we got everyone? Has everyone got a partner? Yeah, everyone has a partner? Yes? Okay. So, such a beautiful lesson, that one. Yeah? So, let's have a look at that in terms of what it can tell someone or what it can tell us. So, we're just going to go bigger picture here for a little bit about what are the, it's not the learning strategies I'm going to talk about here. Do you know what I mean? That how do you go slower? But what's happening in the organisation that's making this movement easier or less easy? So one of you is going to stand up, or both stand up, and one of you is going to be the observer and one is going to be the doer. So if we go back to what's a very basic movement? No? So you're standing and we're going back, we're going to a very basic movement. So can you remember at the beginning of 4 points when you were standing and you were taking your right hand to the ground? Watch how they do it. Okay. So you're just simply observing, just taking whatever you can first, and then I'll give you some different things, maybe some different lenses to observe them from. So we've simply asked them to bend down to touch the ground. Yeah? That was, where would your right, I think the instruction easy was, where do you think your right hand would go most easily to the ground? And then we got them to explore options. Don't do that yet, okay? What pattern did they use to do that? Did they use homologous, homolateral, or contralateral? So what would a homologous look like if they were going to go down to reach? What would their shoulders be doing if it was homologous? The shoulders would be level. So they'd be taking both shoulders at the same time. Both hips would be bending at the same time. Both shoulders would be staying on a line. Both hips would be bending to take their hand down. What would homolateral look like if they were going to more reach down homolateral? What would you do to look homolateral? So what's homolateral? Same side. No? Homologous. So top and bottom. Huh? So it's just, I just want you to get clear on what are you observing is I suppose what I'm after. So did the person use homologous? Huh? To go down? Which means really homologous. Could you see that if you were really doing homologous, if you kept down, both hands would really, if they kept following, touch at the same time? Yeah, because that other hand, even though you're not letting it down, would be coming to the floor at the same time. Huh? What do you think what do you think homolateral is? What would you see if you saw homolateral? They'd probably do a little bit more of a side bend, wouldn't they? No? So where would their shoulders go if they were more homolateral? Where would their hand be going? Would it be going to the foot on the same side or the foot on the opposite side? Same side. Huh? Where the weight's going. Where the weight's shifting. Yep.
No? So there's something about, so could you all try that on yourselves? What's the difference between homologous to bend and homolateral to bend? And homolateral, I've got a few ways. I can either get short on the side that I'm bending. Huh? I could also get long on the side, but it's still homolateral. It's to do with the weight shift. Huh? So can you feel your shoulders cannot be going in the same plane to get homolateral? Huh? They can't be going down like this. They have to be tilting. There has to be a tilt sideways in your shoulders if you're really going for homolateral. Huh? And for some of you, this is well known, and for some of you, it's not. Huh? So then contralateral. What would you see if you saw contralateral? What would the shoulders do then? They'd rotate. They're going to have to turn. They're going to have to turn. Huh? To the left foot. No. I said, it's a good question, Alison. I said homolateral, go down, and you could shorten on this side and do homolateral, or you could lengthen on this side, but still this hand's going to this foot. But it's still a sideways. Contralateral is rotation. Yeah, you're getting a little bit shorter on one side and longer on the other side. That's contralateral. Homologous, which is both, where both hands would be reaching to the floor. So can you see that what you're finding in yourselves, so which of these are familiar to me? This is what we're looking for, and maybe we don't call it homologous, homolateral, and contralateral. They're abstract names. We want all of these variations in there because all of them take the head in different directions. All of them rely on, remember I said the first day, that they organise us to do different things through our hips and shoulders. And that happens because of what changes in our torso. No? So we're trying to find all of these different shapes that we can make through our middle. So go back at the person, you're going to observe them again and just notice, what do they do? What do they do? So and especially look at their shoulders. What do they do with their shoulders when they reach forward? Do they keep them in line? Do they side bend them? Do they turn them? Huh? You can then observe the other person. Yeah? You can then observe your partner. What do they do?
Skip.
Doesn't feel like it.
No, because you want to keep bringing your head over. You're just seeing what the shoulders are doing, basically. What about if you do a side bend with your head? What does that let you do if you do a side bend with your head rather than a turning? Okay, so you've all sort of observed your partner. So these biases are very strong in our systems. What we've learnt to do, what we've organised to find, whether it's homologous or homolateral or contralateral. And again, don't worry too much about the names. It's all about, again, how many different shapes can I make through my middle? That's what it's about. Because again, what you have to remember if we look at the skeleton is we've got those great big hip and shoulder ball and socket joints, which we want to be very mobile, but they're absolute dependent on where are all the joints in the body. Where are the most joints? The spine. I mean, the hands and the feet, you could say. So wherever there's a lot of joints, there's a lot of adaptability. Yeah, that's where you're looking for movement to do a lot of movement. Yeah? So we're constantly seeing, can we wake up? And we can only do it by paying attention, reducing our effort, but by also getting ourselves into different orientations. By the orientation itself demanding something or giving us the possibility to feel something differently. So let's have a look at that last lesson. So can we have 3 people on the mats who are happy to be looked at, who would like to, again, think I could make this a little bit easier to reach my arms forward? Yeah? So Karen's on one mat. Yeah, Doris in the middle. Okay. Sue, do you want to get another mat and go there? The more the merrier, that's all. The more people we've got to look at, the better. So you're on the sitting. So what was one of the first variations in that lesson? So you were sitting, you had one leg long, you had one leg pretty quickly bent with your hands behind it. Have a look what these people have done with their shoulders to get their hands behind their knee. So we've got a little bit of rotation here to get the hands. Sue's going to stay pretty much front plane. Doris is front plane. She's a little bit shorter on her left side. No? And there's a little bit of rotation in UCAT. So how's that starting position going to influence how they're going to start to slide their leg forward? So let's see how they do it. Sliding. Just do sliding at the moment. And look what their shoulders do. Yeah? And just go up and down a little bit. And really look at the reversibility, how they get their leg back again. So again, notice, are both shoulders going together? Is it more a contralateral where one shoulder is coming more forward, or maybe they do the same shoulder going forward as they're lengthening. Maybe they do a bit of a combination. So what happens if we ask the four of you, first of all, and remember we did the instruction really was the head was going forward. Yeah, as you did it, remember that was the other instruction that you were asked for? I think initially, Lisa, it was the top of the head, just the head moving forward, wasn't the chin. It was just the top of the head going forward. So if I'm going to orient that forward, that's actually left me with a lot of possibilities in here. If it's the top of my head that I'm, or the head. So what happens, your head's still going forward, and you've just got your hands and you're going forward, and you think of your both shoulders being oriented to your right knee. So both shoulders are just going straight forward. They're just going straight forward. Look at the plane of movement that has to happen, where their weight is going to shift. And you can see, for Karen, this isn't something that's that clear to her. Huh? It's fine, Karen. But if I and now I said, okay, Karen, both shoulders are going forward. That, can you feel that it's going to ask a totally different shape of her. Than if she keeps doing it. She can make that way a lot easier. But what happens if... So now all try taking the same shoulder forward. I'm not... She wouldn't do it. No, this is an observation, Helen. This isn't how you have to do the lesson. I'm just saying what you're going to see in someone's observation and what possibilities are going to become available in their middle depending on where their habit is, depending on where they orient. So now your right shoulder, think your right shoulder is coming forward, not your left, your right. So, which means your left shoulder has to go back a little bit. Yeah? They have to side bend. Huh? So their head is still coming forward. Yeah? The instruction was your head had to come forward. But there was never any instruction put in there that you had to stay oriented to the front. So where does your head have to go if you bring a different shoulder? Huh? What shape do you make in your back? And then if you bring the opposite shoulder forward. So you now are, and look at the difference again. Huh? And each of these has to change where the weight is on their pelvis, the shapes they're making, what their head's doing. And just as Lisa taught it, Feldenkrais doesn't put any of this in the lesson. But it's just such a beautiful teaching tool to use to show you how you begin to see people's patterns, how you really begin to see what their habit is in how they come forward. And you'll see it in just every time. You'll see it every time they go down, what they do. What do you think, Julie? No. I think everyone has a habit. And again, it's to do with what you do in gravity. Do you know what I mean? What your pattern is, whether you go a bit more to a...
But it depends what you need to pick something here or there.
So what happens if it doesn't matter where I pick it, I always use the same orientation, which is what many, many people do. But this ability to change in here, that this is how I reach my arm, this is how I reach my arm, this is how I reach my arm. but this is how I could reach my arm, or this is how I could reach my arm, or so we're in our habit again. Yeah? And that's going to have big effects on where my head goes through space and what I find through my middle. Yeah?
Instructions in the ATM to offer those alternatives with the aim of disrupting the pattern, giving people, trying to encourage them to do it in a non-habitual way.
That's your call in the lesson, Linda. No? That's your call in the lesson. So now, if you put your elbows under, so he's constrained us more now. Huh? And you do it again and just watch where their shoulders haven't changed much. Can you see? Where their habit is of how they get to one leg. There's their, yeah? So again, if we just say to them, what's the difference if you change whether both shoulders go forward, whether one goes forward, whether the other goes forward, and you're always seeing it in relationship to this lengthening leg. And if you could see them from behind rather than in the front, you're going to see all sorts of different things happening, especially through this middle part of them, which is what's letting because we've constrained their hips and shoulders a lot. So everything now has to be happening through here. So it's a really clever lesson, as Lisa put it, lengthening is about every bit's doing its bit. As soon as every little bit of you is in the picture, so that's the shoulders, let's see, because now we're going to find out a little bit more about what they know about their heads, and their heads are all starting to move a bit more. So this is a real pattern that you'll see. I'm doing something, and the way I orient to the task is often my head just stays in the same orientation. Which is what all of you were sort of doing at the beginning. There wasn't much in there about I could let something else come in. So, sorry, elbows under your knees. So all these different little weight shifts are giving people more ways of exploring how their pelvis moves relative to their hip joints, how their torso moves relative to their shoulders. So now do both together. Sorry. And again, do I have to have the idea now that it has to be, would it be easier if some of you still thought, I could do a little bit of a diagonal here. So I'm going to suggest that to Sue, that diagonal, Sue. So Sue's doing homolateral. This leg's going a little bit more forward, and she's still bringing this shoulder forward with it. What would happen if that shoulder came forward as you... and you're still letting this leg lengthen. So you're changing again the shape. No. And that's what we're trying. And this is the organisational part of Feldenkrais. How do I allow someone through all of these different orientations, all of these different ways, give them a different perspective on life? I'm just saying that if you keep hitting a brick wall, you can come in and go, I'm going to do less, I'm going to spread my attention, I'm going to put more, I'm going to look at my breathing. But often if you just change your orientation a little bit, something can release, something can become available that you always holding in this one orientation just doesn't let happen, but just changing. Yes, I'm going forward, but no one said that I can't rotate my shoulders a little bit to go forward. Yeah. When he finally does that. Yeah. Absolutely, because what does turning the head do? changes your orientation, puts you into, because rotation is about length. Yeah. No? But it's always coming back to finding these multiple ways of shifting our weight, and to realise that this orientation of our head is really going to influence what our shoulders do. Yeah? So again, what's the difference? This is just something. What happens if you're taking your legs forward? We'll just change it a little bit, and you think of the back of your head being oriented to your knees. The back. So it's like you've got a line between the back of your head and your knees. What happens if we bring the image of the back of the head into the picture? Does that make it easier for any of you? No? And that's the thing. Many of us, again, because we're so into the teleceptors, this is our head. Our face is our head, because that's where our teleceptors basically are. Huh? What happens when I get a skull, which is going to bring my vestibular system more into my organisation? So what's the difference if you think of your right ear? Yeah? And it doesn't have to be a big, you don't have to turn a lot. You could even, it might be just a little, and you just go, it's my right ear getting pulled forward from my knees, my right ear. And then maybe it's my left ear getting pulled forward by my knees. Can you see again just those little changes in head movement? Absolutely. Do you think maybe Sue's got a tendency that one ear is more dominant than another, that she tends to listen with? Yeah. No? So how's that going to influence your whole organisation? Mm-hmm. So he uses the chin to go forward. And then there's other lessons, and he uses the nose. You know all these. He uses the forehead. What's he doing with trying to colour in? He uses the ears. Back of the head. What's he trying to set up here that has a major impact on our organisation? And we didn't do anything to the rest of you. So he's constantly building up, in lots of lessons, I'm going to orient you to something outside of yourself. So yes, you're still internal, but how do we keep orienting to different ways, and how much does that influence our organisation? So now if the four of you all come up to standing again, let's just see if changing a little bit, just exploring that, and they went to bend to the floor with one hand. Does it feel different? Is more of you involved? Yeah? Which is exactly what you all got at the end of the lesson. But could you do it in different ways now? How would you go to the same point and find other ways of getting there? So now I'm going to have the same point of orientation in the external world, but I'm going to find lots of ways of getting there. So this is the classic that people will come in and say, I always have trouble bending. I always have trouble doing this. And you'll watch them and the habit will be profound about how they do it. So we've got so many ways that we can come in, but orientation's a huge one. Just these different relationships. I can always remember I think it was Guy Claxton. If you've never read any of Guy Claxton's books on learning. Anyway, he talks about that our habits of perception are the hardest to change, which is really how we use our teleceptors. No? And Feldenkrais would always say if someone's got a strong asymmetry or always stands on one leg, you're going to have to organise their eyes. No? You're going to have to come back to this, how they're taking in information from the outside world that's just keeping them coming over and over. So they get up and everything changes, but then they get their eyes to come back in or their ear to come back in, and they're back in their habit.
The other day I realized when I had my eyes closed, which I all the time, and then I opened the eyes, it's different, totally different feeling, and everything goes smooth. And I think when I have the eyes closed, I focus them somehow.
Yeah.
I never realized.
Fantastic, Karen. That's great, really. That's a great distinction to be able to make. Huh?
And if they're open, it's a different world.
And that's a habit of attention that she's talking about there. I've got a habit of attention in how I scan myself. So, absolutely, this is the way I do it. So definitely you'll be doing something, I would suggest, very particular with your eyes. Yeah. So do you all just want to get on the floor and just have a little explore of that? What difference does it make if you just think of those different relationships between hips and shoulders? And again, because remember what I said is really superb organisation is when through all of these we've found length so that more and more of us is involved in movement, huh? So that I can be anything, and my head can stay more in the middle. So, you know, an example would be, I might have done this last week, you know, here's my head and the women who use this. So they use this homologous pattern as they're walking. No? But their head is free on top. Yeah? Then you'll see people who can do it and they use more rotation, not my favoured. Yeah? Or they can go side to side, because they know how to get their head in the middle with all of these planes of movements. But it's understanding all of these planes of movement, not just intellectually, but within ourselves and the movements of our head, that let us improve all those options. So there's something for you to think about, but have a play. Just see what happens. If you're reaching forward with one leg or both legs, and just see, have I got a habit about what I do with my shoulders, with where I keep this upper chest, my upper back in relationship. So even if you've got your forearms under, is there still a bit of give in there? Can you still change this orientation of where your shoulders are, of where your upper chest is, of where your sternum can go? And how does that let you find something different through your middle and through your weight shift? So this is, as I said, where as ATM teachers, we really need all the learning stuff. Yeah? That's just go slow, do less, spread your attention, look for quality breathing. It's also then understanding in organisation what we're looking for. You just keep with the ear thing, Sue. So do people feel a difference when they just allow? Can you feel that it changes the weight shift? Huh? Changes the shape, changes especially this area that on so many of us doesn't move much. This part through the base of the neck, that we can let that begin to have some other options about how we bring our weight over one leg. That it's not always in the same configuration. Yeah. Yeah. Shoulder positions or different parts of the head. And and what can happen in your middle and up here and up here. This is what's also we're really looking for. This adaptability in, because this orientation of our head has a huge impact on everything, but especially our chest. Rotation gives us the most length. So babies, when they learn to move, usually learn, and we're adults, they learn this plane first, their inflection. Yeah? They learn this plane. I can get a little bit longer here, so they do all the this and this, and then they start to learn sideways plane. And a lot of them don't get to this full rotation until they're already up in gravity more. No, for every vertebra to be able to move, you have to be long. As soon as I'm a little compressed, there's going to be some vertebra that can't turn. Huh? And let me make that distinction. Long, I can be long here. This is still long. But see how my turning's different? Huh? So diagonals will always give you more length. Just wipe that one out of the...
Only in the Northern Hemisphere.
In the memory banks. Yeah? Mm, mm. So if you stand up for a minute, Emma. Absolutely, because there is where it's learning the asymmetry between the flexors and the extensors. Huh? So first of all, they're learning all flexion, all extension, so the two sides are working together, all flexion, all extension, which is what gets their head to the middle. Huh? Then they've got to learn now, because it's a whole different level of organisation, to be able to shorten the flexors and the extensors on one side while the other side gets longer. Yeah? Your head has to move through space to do that. Huh? Yeah?
So that also follows an evolutionary pattern.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm. Oh, that's a discussion, isn't it? A million things. And some babies, I've got been working with this gorgeous, gorgeous little boy. He's just so much better. And when he came in, he's an incredibly, placid child. Yeah? And he knows how to entertain himself. And so he's very, very happy just spending time on his own. So in comes this little child. I think he was, I can't remember, it doesn't matter, 9, 10 months. He hadn't learned how to get to sitting, but his parents had put him in sitting, which is fine. He couldn't move anywhere. So what he developed these incredibly beautiful, fine. His head was absolutely on the horizon. I tell you, it was just stunning. But could he shift his weight without crying? Nowhere. So he could make no transitions. All he could do was be a beautiful little Buddha in one place. So this could move. So think about it. If that was you, would you be reaching out to do things in the environment? How could you if you couldn't shift your weight? How can you? You can't do it. He literally had no idea. So even on his back, he'd just lie there. Nope. Nothing. He would get, if you really perturbed, he would cry. No, he wasn't frustrated at all. He was so happy in his little internal world. He would just sit there. So there was no internal drive in him to explore more, because he was very happy with what was happening in his own little world. No. And, he had the whole position. He was, as I said, it's like a little Buddha, the knees really wide, and he was just this little Buddha. So, these are the things. How do we get this idea of how fundamental weight shift is? And it's all of these. So you can even feel it on yourself. Each one of those requires me to shift my weight in a different way. It demands I shift my weight in a different way, which is going to let my head go somewhere different in space, so that I get another orientation. And we all have the bits that we don't know. So I was just going to do this with Emma. Have a stand up, Emma. So because she's talking about rotation, when someone gets really well organised, I could just going to take Emma's head, and if she's really brilliantly organised, you're feeling really, I got you in now, yeah, brilliant. I should be able to rotate her atlas around her axis. No, but that movement, so when I do it with Emma, that's not clear yet. So I know she's got more to learn. So if I turn Emma, she turns from way down here. If I go to turn her head. Yeah, can you feel it, Emma? She's a really good Feldenkrais practitioner. She's really learnt to involve more of herself in the movement. But this isn't free. Her eyes are starting to go tick, 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 when I ask her to do this, because she hasn't got that freedom of her eyes to be free of her head. But as she gets more and more organised, so what's our first principle? Our first principle is just that more of the person goes along for the ride, which Emma's really understood. I turn and more of me goes along for the ride. I'll just see if we just give you a little bit more, Emma. I'm going to try and use my self-use here to give her a sense. Just going to make her a little bit taller. There, her head's freer. But can you feel that's a really different organisation? So all of you, I'm going to predict, over the years of this training, have gradually got that a little bit higher. As you're putting more and more parts of you into your organisation, that you're going to get to where my head is really free. So it's not that it's disconnected. So I'm not talking about that I'm doing this to Emma and she's just doing that and it's completely disconnected from the rest of her. What I'm looking for is this finesse that it's, now she's in there. It's beautiful. But that's us understanding what we're looking for. What am I looking for that tells me I'm better organised? What are the things that are telling me that I can be better organised? So, and that's why, you know, Emma, like all of us, is still in her apprenticeship about finding all of these things that relate together. I'll just do one more thing, Emma. No, stay there, it's gorgeous. So I'll just make, so Emma now, I'll just give her that little bit of length through my organisation. There she goes, where she's freer. And feel how easy now it is to shift your weight, Emma. Huh? Then I'll take Emma back to where she is at the moment, which is a little bit, she's shorter, but it's a little bit more compressed. And I don't mean that in, but she just, there's bits of her that still aren't in there. Look how hard it is now for her to shift her weight. Huh? But once she gets that, look what's going to happen to her balance reactions and, huh? So that's us really understanding that all of these things, this is, so how is it possible, I'm making a big call here, if I'm feeling not particularly balanced in my life, might it be something about how I'm organising myself too? And can I change something in my organisation to then go, oh, maybe I could look at this or this? Just a suggestion. Okay, have a stand up and a walk around. So it's really understanding it's always these two streams of organisation and learning, that we do our learning through the organisation. Okay. So I'll just hand these out as you're walking around. Someone else might want. Anna, can you hand some out? Thanks. Pleasure. Did you get one? Yeah. So Anna's still got more to the, if you haven't got one yet. Okay. There's also a copy of the other learning one that we were doing the other day about what is learning that you can pick up later. Ah, sorry, it's not that one. I didn't divide them properly. No, that's, yeah, you can keep it. But there's another one as well. Did they change? Yeah, some of them haven't got that one.